welcome. It's another Confessions podcast, and a happy Christmas to you, or a happy New Year, depending on, or both, depending on when you're actually listening to this. So here we go. These are all prize-winning confessions, by the way. Double digital radio gifts being handed out. So what do we have? We have a pretty parking prank. We have a slumping, sunken skiing snowman, a notably naive nun, and a hilarious housing hiccup. Does that even work? Who cares? Well, tonight's we have another Christmas confession for which we give away 2 digital radios to listener Maureen. Oh. Okay. Yes, you missed the one Thursday, by the way. Okay. We kept a really good one for Thursday.
Well, no, I could listen back.
Thank you. Maureen, thank you very much indeed. This takes us back to Christmas during the 1990s. And Simon, as the mother of 3 young children, I obviously did not have to worry about buying and wrapping presents for my 2 daughters and their little brother, as Father Christmas would take care of all that as usual. However, as the big day approached, I was getting more and more anxious. My little son, you see, was desperate for one particular present. It was all he talked about when he talked about Christmas. The only thing that he wanted. He'd been trying so hard to be good.
What was it?
And since August, really, when the parental threats and bribery about good behaviour or no Christmas presents... August started in August. And the toy in question was a Tickle Me Elmo.
Oh!
You remember Elmo, the red fairy character from Sesame Street?
Yeah. Loves Mondays.
Woo! How about that? And I used to love Elmo. I thought Elmo was truly fantastic.
Best character.
Loves Mondays.
And Elmo loves Mondays. Anyway, if you had this toy, it giggled when you tickled it, obviously, and then maniacal laughter and that kind of stuff. Anyway, it was the most popular toy of the year, and it had resulted in a global Tickle Me Elmo shortage. And I was worried that Santa's elves might not have enough to go round. I had scoured all the shops for weeks to try and buy one myself, just in case Father Christmas had run out. But everywhere was sold out, and any new supplies were snatched off the shelves long before I could get to the shops. So it's 4:30 on Christmas Eve, and I was home finalising a few important Christmas jobs, or watching Miracle on 34th Street and eating mince pies, I can't remember, whilst my children were being entertained at their grandma's, when one of my Elmo scouts, i.e. one of my many family members and family and friends who'd been on high alert for weeks on Elmo lookout duty, gave me a call. She had seen Elmo in Asda. But I had to get to the store fast. The store was restricting customers to 1 Elmo per person. And as she had bought one herself, she couldn't purchase a second one on my behalf. Therefore, I needed to move quickly. I'd planned to do a little last-minute food shopping locally before the shops closed on Christmas Eve, so it all came together nicely. I would race to the supermarket, purchase...
You've already named it!
Just one. I'm only allowed one. You can only mention one Asda. If you mention them again, you're in trouble.
And of course, they weren't available in any other.
Anyway, heart-thumping, I jumped in my car and drove to the store. The car park was heaving with last-minute shoppers, and I couldn't find a parking space anywhere.
I'll just leave it anywhere.
I really started to panic after my 3rd circuit of the car park, but then I spotted a family returning to their car with a trolley laden with Christmas fare. I stalked them at 5 miles an hour, following them until they returned to their vehicle. I waited patiently for Mum and Dad to strap children into the car seats, load their car with shopping bags, return the trolley to the trolley park, and then wrestle for ages to extract the pound coin before sauntering casually back to their vehicle and then having a chat about goodness knows what to goodness knows who before eventually reversing out, leaving me free to park in the vacated spot.
That was the plan.
I cannot tell you the relief I felt to know that Tickle Me Elmo would soon be in my grasp. With my indicators flashing to signal my intentions, I drove slightly past the parking space, ready to reverse my car. Good. But before I could do so, the car behind me blasted its horn and shot forwards into my parking space. A hyacinth bouquet lookalike and a snooty-looking chap, presumably her husband, got out of their big, flashy car and strode purposefully past me, steadfastly avoiding my attempt to attract their attention through my open car window. Excuse me, I'm shouting. You knew I was waiting for that space. You sat behind me for ages. You saw me indicating. You saw my reversing lights. Call that the spirit of Christmas? Bah humbug! Something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, calm down.
As you can imagine, I was incandescent with fury and almost in tears. However, I had no alternative but to start my circuit of the car park again. After what seemed like hours, I did eventually manage to secure another parking spot. Good. With the clock ticking away to closing time, I raced into the shop and ran to the toy section, desperately hoping to find Tickle Me Elmo on the shelves. I am pleased to report there were a couple left, and I grabbed one, hugged it to my chest, breathing a huge sigh of relief before placing it in my basket. Just time to race to the food department and snatch a few last-minute purchases, and then I'm off. Now, Simon, this is where the deed occurred for which I am seeking absolution. Who did I see ahead of me in the wine aisle? Only Mr. and Mrs. Bouquet, standing by their trolley, piled high with all manner of festive fare. I noted it was full of expensive goodies, including chocolates and sweets and pâtés and fancy biscuits, along with top-of-the-range staples. And I want to say staples. That's
I was going to say stationery. Stationery. And a top-of-the-range stapler. Get some envelopes. Get some envelopes as well.
And a joint of beef and a cooked ham crammed in there beside a massive turkey. Mrs. Bouquet was calling her husband to the champagne section. Now, snooty posh lady voice here, Simon.
Yeah.
It's an instruction.
Yeah.
Darling, I simply can't decide. Moet or Veuve Clicquot? What shall we get and how many bottles shall we need?
It's Derek Nimmo time, everyone. Here it comes.
As they stood, some distance apart from their trolley, totally engrossed in the champagne debate, I made a split-second decision.
No.
I sneaked up to the trolley, unobserved, pushed it as fast as I could around the aisle, round the corner, past the breakfast cereals and beverages, through the chilled food, past the cigarette kiosk, and finally into the disabled toilet, where I left it and locked it. Closing the door behind me, I took Elmo and my basket of provisions to the checkout, paid for my goods, left the shop. Did I feel a pang of remorse on exiting when I heard the lady on the tannoy say, "Your Asda store will be closing in 2 minutes. Please make your final purchases and proceed to the checkout. Please don't mention the store again or you'll be in trouble." I just added that bit. No, I didn't. Did I feel a pang of remorse when I thought about Hyacinth and hubby wasting precious seconds before the store closed, trawling the aisles looking for their shopping and possibly even having to spend Christmas surviving on whatever bits and pieces they managed to grab off the shelves and rush through the checkouts? No clemency requested there. I do, however, ask forgiveness for the extra work I made for the supermarket staff member who would have had to restock the shelves once the shopping trolley was discovered in the small hours, especially if it caused them to be late home for Christmas. Actually, I think I got my comeuppance anyway, as my son showed absolutely no interest in Tickle Me Elmo.
What? Monday.
After the first 5 minutes on Christmas Day, and he languished at the bottom of the toy cupboard for a few years. That's Elmo, not my son. Until we took him to a car boot sale to be adopted.
Again, Elmo.
Probably with a few
Elmo.
staples.
Not my son. With top-of-the-range staples. That's what I want for Christmas.
Yes.
I want a top-of-the-range stapler.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, I'll get you one of those.
OK, it's Maureen's confession. You can feel her pain, feel her rage through all the decades, Sister Rebecca.
She was pretty lucky to get the Elmo, wasn't she? I
Absolutely.
thought you were going to say there were no Elmos left, and then I thought she was going to steal Elmo from the trolley of this horrible couple. But I think that it was very clever what she did. It was quite cunning, wasn't it? But the problem is that she ruined this couple's Christmas. And the thing with parking altercations is that everyone always thinks they're in the right, don't they? So this couple probably thought she was being really awful and that it wasn't clear that she was going to that space. So I think it's really difficult, from where we're standing today,
Just get
to
on with
judge
it.
who's right, who's wrong.
What do you think?
I'm not going to forgive.
You're not?
No.
Oh, my goodness me,
Yes.
that's a shock. Deadly.
Yeah, I'm not going to forgive either.
my God,
no,
really?
What? Even though it's the Christmas period, no. Two wrongs don't make a right. It's just ridiculous. You went too far. It's poor use of a disabled loo. Somebody could have wanted Somebody could have wanted the disabled loo.
You don't mean
And
that.
in the end, you did get the Elmo. That's the important thing. So you just forget it. You should have moved on, really. Don't worry too much about the staff members. They work late anyway, so they'll be complaining to me in a minute.
Brother Matthew.
But on balance, no, I don't forgive.
I love a bit of car park stress. I love making people wait before I pull out. I like to have a conversation with my wife in the car before I engage the ignition. Always fun. So for that reason, I am definitely going to forgive because I can absolutely tell why she did it. And well done for getting it into the disabled loo. Well done.
And locking it.
And how do you manage that from the outside? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
You can.
So I'm going to forgive. Yes.
I thought you would. Anyway, it's another Dry Time confession, and it's another Christmas confession, and another double digital radio prize that we can offer, and it goes to Terry in Essex.
Okay.
Where's Brother Matthew?
I'm making notes on his behalf, don't worry.
really?
I'm making notes.
It's the spirit of Nigel has affected you.
Sorry.
What time do you call this then?
He's
Coming in
busy.
now.
Do you know what's happened? You know what's happened? Ever since he came up in the lift with Cameron Diaz, he's gone very, very showbiz on us. His three
All
word
of
there is
20 seconds with me and Cameron Diaz.
lift with Cameron.
What did you say to her?
What did she say to you?
For between me and
Are
Cameron.
you Brother Matt? Is what
She did. She did ask for something to be on Dr. Mosh. Yeah.
Good call. Anyway, that's because Cameron's going to be on with Chris. So Terry says, Dear Father Simon and the Holiest of Collectors, I better start with a bit of background. The first time I met my neighbour, Jerry, was 26 years ago.
Terry and Jerry?
Apparently so.
Okay.
When on the day he moved in next door to me, I was having a bit of a Basil Fawlty moment. I'd been trying to grow a pampas grass in my front garden. I thought it would look nice, but it hadn't grown into the fine specimen I'd envisaged. I had just told the pampas grass that I'd warned it a number of times what would happen if it didn't grow, and as it looked like dead grass to me, I had no alternative but to set fire to it.
No alternative?
This was just as Jerry pulled up to move into his house. It wasn't helped by me shouting, I warned you, pampas grass! as the flames rose higher. I did say hello, but he just looked at me and went inside, probably wondering if he'd moved into the right area. Anyway, many years have gone by, and both our families get on pretty well. Now, to the Christmas confession. My wife is in charge of indoor Christmas decorations, and they're always most tasteful, elegant, colour-coordinated, that the outside of the house is mine. And the word tasteful does not quite apply. Think of lights and colour, and actually this is a thing that you're going to like.
Yeah.
I think. Neon reindeer, neon elves, artificial snow, happy Christmas picked out in fairy lights. You know the kind of place.
Number of films like this, aren't there?
Now, this particular year, the centrepiece of my festive display took pride of place on my garage roof. It was, Father Simon, a resplendent 6-foot fibre-optic skiing snowman. I thought he looked great with his rotund, colour-changing body and moving arms, but that might just have been me. After an evening of pre-season drinks at our local, my wife and I returned home to find the highlight of my festive festooning, the illuminated skiing snowman, was no longer on our roof.
Oh.
The wind had been blowing a gale which had picked up our festive friend and blown him off, as it were. As I approached him lying on the floor, I could see that something was not quite right. He was not as I'd left him, apart from him being on the floor, obviously. No, for in his mouth there was now a partly smoked cigar and a note in his hand.
Yes.
What did the note say?
Go on.
Note said, Dear Terry, I fell off the roof and hurt myself, but your nice neighbour Jerry picked me up. To show gratification for saving my life, a beer or two would not go amiss.
Gratitude.
Yes, exactly. Having already had a few myself, I thought it would be a laugh to take the snowman and place it on his kitchen window ledge next door, using a window box for support, so that when he woke up, he would come downstairs and have a wonderful surprise of seeing the snowman looking through the window at him. Once the snowman was positioned, I went to bed and thought no more about it.
Okay.
At 6 a.m, we were roused by an almighty noise. Thunk. Thunk.
Do that again?
Thump. And on it went.
Oh.
Thunk.
Thunk. There's a K on the end.
Thunk.
Yeah, yeah.
And then a thump. So thunk, thunk, and then thump.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the racket, I found out later, woke my dear neighbour with a start, which also caused his 2 Japanese dogs to bark and howl at full volume. Then they dashed straight upstairs and hid cowering under his bed. Thunk. Thunk. Thump.
Okay.
After rolling his eyes at his brave dogs, Jerry crept carefully down the stairs, his heart pounding, not knowing what sort of danger he might encounter, what sort of a burglar breaks in at 6 o'clock on Christmas morning. The noise was getting louder.
Was it?
Thunk.
Oh, we're gonna do. Oh, good.
Thunk.
Thump. Yeah.
Thunk. Thunk. Thump. There's only so much of this I can
You
say,
forced him. You
really.
forced him into an extra one there.
On entering his kitchen, Jerry was faced with the sight of the illuminated 6-foot fibre-optic snowman. It had sprung to life and proceeded to try and ski on Jerry's window ledge. Secured to the window box, the snowman's arms couldn't move, so with nowhere else to go, his head was headbutting the window. That was the thunk, thunk, and thumping went the headbutting snowman. Quite a noise for that time of the morning. When the window cracked, I believe the words he uttered, partly in shock and mostly at my expense, are not suitable for any radio show. In my merry state the night before, I had completely forgotten that the skiing snowman was on a timer, set to come on in the early morning, while still dark, 6 a.m. to be precise, and again in the evening. I hadn't thought it through entirely, but no malice was intended. I'd like to seek forgiveness from Jerry, whose Christmas lion and big window were spoilt.
Big window.
From the rest of my neighbours, especially the ones woken from their slumber by the sound of a head-butting snowman, whacking his head against the kitchen window, I'm very sorry for the long, luxurious line that you were expecting, but you never got. I hope you can forgive me. Well, Terry gets a double digital radio. Maybe, if he's still living next to Jerry, Jerry should get one, don't you think? Because
Yeah, well, that would be a gesture, wouldn't
it would be a gesture of sorts.
Something,
Yes. Gestures. It's a season of gestures.
It is indeed. It certainly is here.
Anyway, Terry, thank you. I like the idea of a 6-foot illuminated head-butting snowman waking you up 6 o'clock Christmas morning. Mind you, if you've got kids, you'll be been awake for 2 hours anyway. Sister Rebecca, what do you make of this?
I would have been terrified to see a 6-foot snowman knocking
Anyway.
at the window in the dark on Christmas Day. I think it would have frightened me out of my wits.
True.
So I think the neighbour Jerry would have been quite angry about this, but his neighbour Terry didn't mean to wake him up. It was just a joke, and actually Jerry started it, didn't he, by putting the note in the snowman's hand.
Yes.
In the first place.
Yes.
So I think it was a funny joke that went slightly wrong, but I'm going to forgive.
You would think it's like possessed of the devil, wouldn't you? Something like that.
It's a tricky one, this, isn't it? Because they're as bad as each other, really. They are as bad as each other, these two. I'm not sure I approve of all these. Well, Matt will concur, I'm sure, when he comes to deliberate on this one. Too many, like these sort of strange activities. The 6-foot skiing, which went what? Thunk, thunk, thump.
And then thump, yeah.
Why was the difference between the third and the second
Artistic licence.
one? Okay. But to be fair, you stuck to it. You stuck to it brilliantly. I sort of forgive, really. It was a good game. He didn't mean to wake everybody up, or indeed break the window.
You just forgotten about the timer.
The broken window worried me a bit because it was a big window. That could be quite expensive.
Forgiven or not?
I think I forgive.
Thanks very much indeed. Brother.
Yeah, got there.
Brother Matthew.
Okay, I'm not buying the defence about the timer, by the way. Oh, I can't remember. I was a little bit merry the night before. I'd forgotten about the timer. Yeah, you knew what you were doing.
Plugged in.
But let's be honest. Which of us is still in bed at 6 o'clock on Christmas morning? None of us. That's the answer. None of us are. We're all up opening our presents.
I'm not.
All reasonable people.
Here.
All reasonable people are out of their beds.
You wake your son
way
up.
before
Come
6 o'clock.
on.
Yes, we're opening presents well before then. So we're all up anyway. So nothing to forgive because you're already out of bed, as all reasonable people are on Christmas morning.
Tonight's comes from, let's call her Maria. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Dear Father Simon and the festive Forgiving Collective. Yes, I've been inspired to tell you something I should have told our local priest 30 years ago. My confession takes me back to the early 80s, and I was 15. I was leading a bit of a double life. At school, I was a dedicated, quiet pupil, resplendent in my blazer and sensible shoes, a good convent girl. At home, I hung around with kids from the local comprehensive. I went dancing. I wore pixie boots, batwing jumpers, and the tightest of jeans. Wow. These jeans attracted a coveted boyfriend. He was on a YTS scheme at the local garage.
That's so 80s.
We are 80s through it, aren't we?
Back in time, ladies.
Yeah.
My parents were so proud.
Yeah, brilliant.
He was from the wrong side of the tracks. He soon opened my eyes, but there was more to life than divinity and English homework.
I'll bet.
Steady on, Maria.
Yes. What time is it? Is it before 9 o'clock?
It's the English homework that brings me to my confession, Father Simon.
Okay.
You see, as Christmas approached, snogging and cider was far more attractive to me than writing about a boring Christmas-themed poem for Sister Jude. I was her golden girl, her A-star student, if there had been such a thing back in the 80s. And I planned to say that I had been helping pensioners out of their leg warmers or another wholesome 80s activity.
Leg warmers.
It's normally people crossing roads, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think she was trying to think of an 80s activity.
Yes, it was, clearly.
Leg warmers.
Anyway,
Leg
this
warmers.
had prevented me from doing my homework. However, as the morning of handing in time progressed, I lost my nerve, and at first break, I wrote out a perfect Christmas poem and duly handed it in. Job done. Reputation as a goody two-shoes intact. Also, I thought. The next lesson, Sister Jude handed back the books, although she didn't hand mine back.
Oh.
And suddenly the awful truth dawned on me. She was going to read my poem out, as she quite often did, as inspiration to the other pupils. Prior to this day, they probably hated me. I really hadn't thought this through. Anyway, in front of everybody, Sister Jude smiled as she introduced my poem. Clearing her throat, she said, Maria, such a lovely contribution from you. You're a real blessing to all of us. She cleared her throat again and read.
Can you do that?
Ahem.
Thank you.
That's my Sister Jude.
That was very good. It was very good. I was almost there. I was
Here's
there.
Here's the poem.
Yeah.
Snow is falling all around me.
Sounds familiar.
Children playing.
Yeah.
Having fun.
Yeah.
It's the season. Love and understanding. Merry Christmas, everyone. Well, my cheeks started to burn as other pupils started to hum along. Some swayed, others clapped, and Sister Jude, delighted with their reaction, said with no irony at all, It had a lyrical familiarity. As she read out what was clearly "Merry Christmas, everyone" by Shaking Stevens. I had taken my smash hits to school, and that had been my inspiration. Anyway, she continued, "We're going to have a party tonight." And then with slight awkwardness, "I'm going to find that girl underneath the mistletoe.
All right.
Yep.
We'll kiss by candlelight." I declare she blushed at such fruitiness. I don't think she'd used such words before. Father Simon, seek forgiveness from Shaking Stevens lawyers for plagiarism to my classmates, as my crown of Sister Jude's favourite did not slip. And the annual £10 book token prize was mine once again.
Wow.
So she
Brilliant.
got a prize out of it.
Yeah.
Good for her.
How about that?
Yes.
Not only had I taken advantage of the fact that I knew Sister Jude would never have listened to Radio 1, but for also for her bewildered look when, after being asked to share my poem again at the end of term mass, I shared one that I had actually written, and it had no comparison to "Merry Christmas, Everyone," and was rubbish. Anyway, Maria basically, she hadn't done the prep. She'd been snogging the guy from the garage on the YTS scheme, and that got her into trouble, and so she cheated. Sin upon sin upon sin. Let that be a lesson to you, boys and girls.
Okay. Don't point that at me.
All right, so anyway, let's talk to our own good convent girl from the right side of the tracks, Sister Rebecca.
I think Sister Jude was a little bit naive here. I mean, I know she's a nun and everything, so she's not supposed to know about the lyrics of Shakin' Stevens' songs.
Is that right? Are
When
they
she
not
read the
supposed to
bit
know?
about when
That's
she read
a
the
law,
bit about
is it?
Maria kissing a girl under the mistletoe, I think she may have cottoned on that was not something that Maria would have written, or maybe it was something Maria would have written. Anyway, I think if you can get
Let's
away
not
with it,
judge.
let's not judge. That's right. I think if you can get away with it, then that's absolutely fine, and she did, and good for her.
So
Forgiven.
forgiveness. All right, okay. Let's see what the Dean makes of
Well,
it.
it is the season, isn't it? It is the season.
Well, you
I
didn't
think.
forgive yesterday. It
No,
was
I
the
didn't,
season
but
then.
I've changed today because I didn't have so much to drink as I had yesterday, although it does seem to be in front of me here, which will be good later. Sister Jude, yeah, she should have known better, really. She should have noticed that Maria's writing was different from what was normally handed
poetry.
in. Well, you know, but well done, and Maria should thank her fellow pupils for not letting Sister Jude in.
Yeah, you could have said, "Hey, excuse me, miss, that's a Shakin' Stevens
yeah,
hit."
we know that to be, exactly. No harm done, and Shaky would have loved it. Would have loved it.
Let's see what Brother Matthew makes of it.
Well,
all.
this reminds me of when I was at school, and there was a lad in our class who was a bit more sort of revolutionary than me, and he
No, it
decided
can't have
to
been anybody
bring
but-
down the system by submitting a Smith's lyrics instead of poetry, and the poetry teacher didn't cotton on, and and he was absolutely what an amazing poem you've written there, and it was just taken from the smash hits.
Popular culture.
Exactly, yes, and he went on to work in the tax office. So there you go. It's a lesson for us all there.
Yes.
So I am going to forgive because
come on,
we've
make
all
your
done
mind
it.
up.
We've all done it.
well, we haven't all done it. have
Well,
we?
we could have all, given the right circumstances, we'd have all done it.
Hang on a second. Okay, so the confessions are all done. That's it. That's it. So, do you forgive? What do you think, Brother Matthew?
Yes.
Very good. You haven't heard it yet, have
No.
you? By the way, I've just got a little update. That was the reason I'm slightly confused. Is we just had. Do you remember Sanjean's confession? Sanjean was the guy who did that fantastic story, which I read out when Michael Morpurgo was in, about where he was at Hull University, and he'd had a kind of a fairly raucous life, and so he went and he danced with Jill. Do you remember that? Do you remember this story, the World War I story?
Oh,
anyway,
yes.
got a huge response, and we got an email from Sanjean saying that confession is going to be turned into a film script.
No.
Which is quite
You're kidding me.
Michael Morpurgo sat here and said, "Why do I write stories when that is the truth?" And it's being turned into a film script.
Into a script, not yet a film, but it
No,
will,
but,
it actually will be a film.
Lots of things have been.
Yeah?
No, it's being turned into a script. So
Right.
that's, and hopefully, and the idea is to raise as much money as possible for dementia charities and so on. So anyway, that's the idea. Sanjean has updated us. Who knows whether it'll actually get made? But it's the next stage is turn it into a script, and that is actually being happened. And that Sanjean confession is going to be on our Advent calendar day on Sunday. So you can hear that confession again if you open the appropriate door on Sunday, which is all on our Facebook page. Phew! Here's the tale then, and tonight's comes from Paul. This is our last Christmas confession. Paul, thank you very much indeed for this. Father Simon and the Drive Time Elves, let me take you back to the Christmas of 1987. I just started my first full-time job after leaving university. My parents had asked their children if they would be home for Christmas, and, as it turned out, we were all up for eating and drinking Mum and Dad out of their house and home over the Christmas period. As my three sisters were all married, and I was the baby of the family, the bedrooms were duly allocated to my sisters and their partners, whilst I was farmed out to a friend's flat nearby. Not that I'm bitter about this, I have got over it. Anyway, says Paul, to cut a long story short, we all assembled at Mum and Dad's house in good time on Christmas Eve. Mum's cooking was excellent. Dad had raided his wine store to wash the fine meal down, and I should add that my brothers-in-law and I were pretty good at doing the actual washing down. In short, we'd all had a very excellent evening. And so to bed. Mum, Dad, siblings and so on all toddle off to their cosy rooms. As for me, my instructions from Mum were as follows. Bob and Maureen are away for Christmas. They've left a bedroom for you. It's all made up. The house is 3 doors down.
Oh, no.
The bottom door is left open. The bottom door is left open. You go up to the top floor. The building's been split into 3 flats. If Deadly was here, he'd be drawing a map.
Yeah.
And here is the key to the flat. What could possibly go wrong? I pick up my oversized holdall. I toddle down the road. 3 doors down. Turn into the driveway. Bottom door open. Walked up 3 flights of stairs. I'm concentrating really, really hard, as you can imagine. It did seem, though, that the key didn't really fit the door. This took a while to process due to Dad's incredible wine store. However, eventually I realised that the door wasn't actually locked. So in I go. This is a result. Anyway, at this stage, the munches have crept in just a little. So I dumped my bag in the corridor and went in search of the kitchen. And to my surprise and delight, I found the warm remains of a turkey and ham meal. In fact, there's an awful lot left over, which is fantastic. Anyway, let's just say I tucked in. I didn't worry about any of the clearing up, of course. And then I washed it down with the remains of a bottle of wine. No glass required. So I just swigged it straight from the bottle. Anyway, and finally I get to go to bed. Now, I didn't know the layout of the flat, but I figured it couldn't be that difficult to find a spare bedroom, so I walked off down the corridor in search of a likely place to lay my weary head. And now here comes the confession, says Paul. As I walked down the corridor, I heard voices. Well, that was funny. Bob and Maureen are away for Christmas. Then I thought, why was the food out in the kitchen? And it became clear as I looked into what was obviously the main bedroom to see a middle-aged couple who I'd never ever seen before, both in bed, sitting up, reading and having a somewhat animated conversation. Their pyjamas were particularly stylish. My stomach churned as I realised that something was amiss, and that something was me. I looked down at my turkey and wine-stained shirt. Guilty. I had, in effect, broken into a neighbour's flat and consumed their food and drink. Guilty. I quietly retraced my steps, picked up my holdall, and left both the flat and the building. Once outside, having sobered up a little, took stock of the situation and realised I'd counted not 3 but 4 doors down, and had therefore entered a completely different and utterly erroneous house. Notwithstanding the fact that this has been an ongoing Christmas story for our family for the last 27 years, I think it's about time that I put to rest the mystery of the missing food, and that in actual fact there was not a very large rat at large in Deal at Christmas time. Well, there wasn't in 1987. It's high time that I apologise to the couple, who might still be wondering what on earth happened to the remains of their Christmas meal, and that particularly fine port. I'm sure we didn't finish the whole bottle. Anyway, so you kind of knew where it was heading as soon as he staggers out of the door. So very nice. Going to the wrong place. Paul, thank you very much indeed. 2 digital radios, but what does Sister Rebecca make of that?
So the couple didn't actually see him. He just managed to get out of there before they noticed that he was there.
Thank
goodness
just
for that.
tore out of there. But then when they get up the next morning, the kitchen is a state, their wine is completely drunk, and he's completely finished everything.
He's obviously not thinking straight, is he? Because he's not wondering why there are, these people are supposed to be away and there's a whole meal there and it's still warm, and he thought he'd just help himself to it. It's a bit like Goldilocks, isn't it?
Yes, exactly right.
I think that these people are actually more at fault because they left not only their flat door open, but also presumably the front door to the house as well.
Or maybe
so
Deal is that kind of place where it's all fine.
True,
we
yeah,
all
that's
trust
very
each
true.
other.
That's very true. But I think
apparently that's not
anyone could have walked in, and he did. Luckily, he wasn't a real burglar. So actually, I'm going to forgive you, Paul.
So he did them a favour. I wonder if he locked the door on the way out.
Maybe he did.
Maybe he did. Let's see what the novice makes.
Well, that would really confuse them, wouldn't it? Because they would not understood. Anyway, my turkey is your turkey, and for you plonker, Paul, because you go into a place and then you start eating warm food, and realising that Maureen and Mr. Maureen were away. So that by the time obviously he was a bit befuddled by the
the wine he'd drunk and then the port that he'd been gargling. And as it is the season of festive greetings, ho, 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 Paul, despite everything I've just said, I am jolly well going to forgive you, you lucky boy.
He has been on the beer already, nice, by the way, but it's all
professionally
Who'd have
reasoned.
thought?
just for work. Anyway, Brother Matthew.
Well, he was obviously a bit merry, and obviously it's the season and all that. But I think if I were in his position, I'd have left some money. I'd have said,
He's not going to have any money with it.
Yeah, right.
A little bit of money there for eating your turkey and your ham. But yes, I do agree. What are they doing leaving the doors? It's not the 1950s. You don't leave your doors open. You're supposed to be locking your doors. So for that, I am going to forgive.
What if it's a lovely little neighbourhood and it's all perfect?
Well, the lovely little neighbourhood just got a bit of a wake-up call from someone who comes in and eats all their turkey.
So he was doing them a favour?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
They were this week's Christmas confessions. Hope you enjoyed them. Now, if you have an ordinary confession, by which I mean not festive in any way, or just something that you think will go down rather well in January, maybe something that you've done over the last couple of days and you want to tell everybody, it's confessions@bbc.co.uk. More in 2 weeks' time, following the festive break. And the Weekly Mayo available to download now and every Friday. Thank you so much for patronising this service. What? It's comedy.